India Khalistanis have reared their heads yet again. Over the weekend, the Indian consulate in San Francisco was set on fire by Khalistani separatists in retaliation against the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a designated terrorist who headed pro-Khalistan outfits, Khalistan Tiger Force and the Canadian arm of Sikhs for Justice. He was shot dead in an inter-gang war in Canada last month. Luckily, the damage was limited and no staffers at the consulate were injured. The US State Department has strongly condemned the incident. This was the second attack by pro-Khalistani supporters on the Indian consulate in San Francisco in the last 5 months. In another major development, the Indian government today summoned the Canadian High Commissioner over a so-called freedom rally being planned by Khalistan supporters in Toronto on the 8th of July. What's worse, the posters for this rally, titled "Kill India," carried direct threats to India's envoy in Ottawa and Consul General in Toronto, blaming them for Nijjar's killing. The posters carried their pictures and names in an unmistakable attempt to paint a target on the backs of Indian diplomats. A démarche was served to the Justin Trudeau government on Monday. The Canadian government has reaffirmed its commitment to the safety of Indian diplomats in that country while terming the posters unacceptable. This comes a day after India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said the radical extremist Khalistani ideology is not good for India or its partner countries. We've requested our partner countries like Canada, the US, UK and Australia, where sometimes Khalistani activities happen, not to give space to the Khalistanis. But fact is, Canada has been brazenly giving space to Khalistanis for years now. There have been multiple incidents where India's interests in that country have come under attack. Just a few weeks ago, there was a celebration of the assassination of former Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in the Brampton city of Canada. A video of a float at a parade in Brampton depicting the assassination had gone viral. Despite New Delhi raising the threat of these Khalistani extremists to the Indian diaspora with the Justin Trudeau government, the latter chooses to take no action against these violent elements. The reason is simple. The Sikh separatists constitute a vote bank for the Trudeau government. Therefore, Khalistani extremists have virtually been given a free pass by this regime. The question is, how can Canada justify allowing such rallies on its soil when these are clearly targeted at Indians? Will Justin Trudeau keep looking the other way? How should India deal with this challenge? Ambassador Trigunyat, let me start with you. India issued a démarche to the Canadian government yesterday. Today, the High Commissioner of Canada to New Delhi was summoned. Yes, there have been these unfortunate and condemnable incidents in other parts of the world as well. For example, in the United States, where India's consulate in San Francisco was set on fire, attacked for the second time in 5 months. But it has to be said, given what's been happening in Canada for many years now, it is really nothing short of a provocation. Like I mentioned at the start of the show, just a few weeks ago, you actually had a float in Brampton City in Canada celebrating the assassination of former Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. You've had repeated attacks, at the Indian missions in Canada. There've been rally after rally carried out by these Khalistani elements, and now they are threatening to hold yet another rally on the 8th of July where they say they will actually march to the Indian High Commission in Ottawa and consulate in Toronto. And what is far worse than that is that they have issued these posters that issue direct threats to top Indian diplomats, including our High Commissioner. The names and pictures of these men are on those posters. This is happening right under the nose of Justin Trudeau and his government. Tell me, what good is it for the Canadian Foreign Minister to say these posters are unacceptable and under the Vienna Convention, Canada takes its obligation regarding the safety of Indian diplomats and all other diplomats very seriously? What is the point of it all when Canada is going to continue giving space to these elements? who are clearly targeting Indians.
You are so right, Neha. It's not now. It's been for 50 years. We have seen these Khalistani elements have not only survived there, but have thrived. They have become some kind of a political support mechanism for the Trudeaus. First, it was his father, Pierre Trudeau, during that time also. It was taken by India. And it is again under Justin Trudeau that we have seen it increasingly taking a greater salience. And this is actually very unfortunate for a country that talks of freedom and says, and the response, you look at the lukewarm response, that we take our obligations very seriously rather than condemning the attack. What is unacceptable about it? I mean, do you allow this kind of a thing, or if it happens to their
If you
diplomats
really think
elsewhere,
it's
will
unacceptable,
they be?
Ambassador, do not allow this rally to go ahead. Isn't it as simple as
No,
that?
not only the rally, they have taken no action. I mean, you remember that they wanted to conduct they allowed the referendum to be conducted
Absolutely.
for Khalistan. I mean, that is something that is just recognizing another country within a country. So that amounts to straight internal interference in the country. And that is precisely the reason that Dr. Jaishankar has been issuing warnings. And he says this kind of an electoral politics will impact our bilateral relations also. And that's what must have been told to the Canadian High Commissioner who was called in today, which is a standard protocol. And we have seen two of their ministers, one of them is of Indian origin, Anita Anand, issuing some kind of a very anodyne kind of a response to this. But this does not take away the threats that are being posed to our diplomats. And I doubt very much that the Canadian police will be able to do anything. We have seen what happened in UK. We are seeing that our consulate in San Francisco has been attacked twice. In fact, the last 5 months, we just had it a few days ago. In fact, that was burned there. So I think that these countries will have to look at the way their politics is going. Is it going to be this kind of an opportunism that they are going to continue, which is going to definitely impact the bilateral relations as far as Canada is concerned?
Well, fact of the matter is, it has already hurt bilateral ties between India and Canada. This has emerged as a huge irritant. But fact of the matter is that nothing has changed as far as the Justin Trudeau government is concerned. No wonder the Prime Minister of Canada got such a lukewarm response from the Indian government when he undertook a visit to India a few years ago with his family. Robinder Sachdev, let me ask you this. What is the point of saying we take our obligations under the Vienna Convention seriously and these posters are unacceptable if you're going to allow these activities to take place on your soil? Protests, rallies, marches, and, if one thought that that parade which sort of celebrated the assassination of Indira Gandhi took things too far, what does one say about these posters that are painting a target on the backs of India's top diplomats, our High Commissioner and our Consul General? I mean, if this isn't a grave provocation, I don't know what is. And the provocation isn't just coming from these Khalistanis. It is coming, I would say, directly from the Justin Trudeau government. Isn't it abundantly clear that Justin Trudeau will continue to look the other way no matter how many times India registers a protest, issues a démarche, or summons the Canadian envoy? For the simple reason that these Khalistani extremists constitute an important vote bank for the Trudeau government. It's all about domestic politics.
Thank you so much, Neha. I mean, if I were to step back, I'm an engineer once upon a time in my life, and I often look at the root cause analysis, right? Now, the root cause analysis that I bring may, kind of lead somewhere, etc. But the way I look at it, no, it is not only vote bank politics of the Trudeau government. Yes, it is vote bank politics, but let's say that's 50%. The other 50% are the laws and law enforcement mechanisms in these countries. Okay, keep aside the 50%, agreed. Trudeau may be, bowing, kowtowing to the Khalistani or Sikh vote bank and diasporas for their votes in Canada. But the other 50%, I think, is to do with the laws and regulations under which people can be charged in these countries. Now, that is what has to be changed. Keep aside the vote bank politics. Now, does the burning of a flag or an Indian flag count to something? I don't know, depending upon Canada. And by the way, the same thing is happening in the US. There are posters with the ambassador. I'll not take his name because why identify? But similarly, India's representatives in the US and our consulate general in San Francisco, the same poster is going around in the US also. India should issue a demarche or invite the US ambassador to have a discussion on that. Now, what happens in these
But
cases?
frankly, Mr. Sachdev, I'm not sure if it is fair to draw an equivalence between Canada and the United States in this regard, because I don't think you've seen the kind of Khalistani activities that we've witnessed in Canada for a long time now in the United States of America. I am not sure this is a fair equivalence. Yes, San Francisco consulate has come under attack. Yes, there are threats being issued to our diplomats there as well, but I don't think we've seen these kind of rallies being taken out.
We can focus on Canada, but the same poster that is floating around in Canada, the same poster with names of our ambassador Taranjit Sandhu and our consulate in San Francisco are out there today. The same poster, just the names and pictures change, is happening in the US. Okay, let's come back to Canada. So my understanding is that, sure, politics, but where we can screw down, where we can pressure, is that the Canadian government, and actually the US government has now said that they will get FBI to investigate, and these incidents will now be looked as riots, not just, protests outside our consulate in Frisco or wherever. So similarly, these governments have to act, let's say Canada specifically, has to act within its local laws and regimes that, see, the point is, the Canadian government says, our law allows people to assemble and raise any slogans, okay. But what if somebody throws a stone at a diplomatic embassy and that's hurt? What is your law with regards to that? And how are you implementing? And if somebody does that, under what charges are you prosecuting that person? So the pressure of Jai Shankar and all of our stance is towards that Canadian government, these are, whatever, there is flouting of your own laws, etc. You have to charge and prosecute these guys. What Canadian government, or let's say it's happening the same in the UK, the same is happening in Australia. These governments, what they have to do is that, one, beef up the protection, firstly, especially consulates, right? Protection around our embassies and consulates, right? Secondly, the people who are aggressive in whichever way. See, the point is, if you stand on one side of the road and throw a stone, at most the local police can charge you with a $50 fine maybe. You paint a graffiti outside the walls. That has to be charged.
Okay, point taken, Mr. Sachdev. We've heard you. Let me now take this back to Ambassador Anil Trigunyat. It really is not for us to tell Justin Trudeau how to deal with this. The point is, at the end of the day, Ambassador Trigunyat, let me ask you this. Robinder Sachdev says this isn't just about Trudeau's vote bank politics. This is also about individual laws in different countries. There are countries like the United States, the UK and Canada that pride themselves on being great democracies that uphold liberal values such as freedom of expression. It's all very well to allow a peaceful protest to take place, for a few people to be allowed to gather, in the name of freedom of expression. We're not even talking about the burning of another country's flag. But when there is a direct threat issued to the diplomats of another country, and that does happen to be a friendly country, might I add, though this should really not be a factor, does that constitute freedom of speech? Surely not.
Actually, like we are missing the point here. The fact remains is, under the Vienna Conventions, irrespective of whatever your relations are, once the diplomats have been accepted, this is the responsibility of the host government to protect because the embassy is considered as the country. so that protect the premises, the people, and the property. So all these are the responsibility of the state government of the country from where we are talking about. So the Canadians, instead of saying we take it very seriously, I mean, they should take action, and it has to be preventive. It is not exposed. Now we have seen exposed also they have not done when their domestic laws come into play. But you have to do it beforehand. And wherever the protests are allowed, demonstrations are allowed, even in India it can be allowed, but then within about 300 meters, 500 meters of the periphery of the embassy, they are stopped by the police, and there is a great police presence to stop that, so that nothing, the kind of sort of things that we have seen both in UK, in Canada, or even in USA happen here. When have we seen in India that happening? You see, so they have to take it very seriously. Talking something that we take our obligations very seriously. If you cannot protect the diplomats, might not have the embassies from the other countries. There may be differences internal, but this is no way of explaining and trying to bring out the posters. There cannot be anything more. And you just showed this showing on your screen also about the Indira Gandhi's this thing. I mean, nothing can be blasé than this. And just because you have 2%, 2.1% Sikhs there, and there is a minority of the Sikhs who actually subscribe to this kind of ideology or whatever is happening, it is just a very small minority of the people. But they become the majority and also bring a bad name to everybody. And that also has an impact in India and elsewhere because they are being supported by these governments. I'm going to say that. I'm not saying that they are just doing on their own, because they know that they will get the support from the state, that the state will do nothing to them. It's nothing to do with the law. I mean, you have to take care of these guys, arrest them, put them behind bar, whatever it is. So, but you cannot allow this kind of arson and the mayhem to occur in front of the embassies. Of course, you may not choose to have good relations with a country. Fine, don't have that. Then expel the diplomats. Simple. But you cannot let them be killed. It's not something like Afghanistan or a war zone. Even there, we have not seen that happening. And I have been in such war zones also.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. You know, like I said, the law of your country may allow peaceful assembly of people, a peaceful protest, even the burning of another country's flag. But glorification of the assassination of the former Prime Minister of another country, glorification of extremism and violence, and issuing threats to the diplomats of another country and their families, that cannot constitute freedom of expression by any stretch of imagination. Ambassador Trigunyat, therefore my question to you is simply this. You know, India has issued a démarche, India has summoned the Canadian High Commissioner. Just yesterday, Mr. Jaishankar spoke publicly about this, saying that, you know, we have told our partner countries like Canada, US, UK and Australia that, you know, giving space to these elements is good neither for you, nor for us, nor for our relationship. Beyond this, what are India's options?
Well, India's options are, you know, in diplomatic way, if you want to go, you can always scale down your diplomatic relations. You can bring back your ambassador. You can have it, let it be at the junior level officer, be there till such time that they are able to protect our people. You know, I mean, we have sent this technical mission in Afghanistan, despite all the kind of threats. There is a consular level officer who's there, but the Taliban have said that they are going to try provide all kinds of protection. That's a very difficult place to be. But Canada is not such a place. It is the people are emboldened because of the connivance of the government. As simple as that. So if that is the case, then we have this option number one. Then we can other mechanisms that we have between our two countries, we can slow down those mechanisms. We are talking about this free trade agreement and all that. We can just take our time to discuss those till such time that the Canadians realize that what is their priority. Is their priority are these stray Sikhs in their country who are being emboldened by their government or politicians?
So let me ask both of you this question, starting with you, Ambassador Trigunyat. If this rally were to in fact go ahead on the 8th of July, and God forbid, if there were to be any kind of attack, either on India's High Commission in Ottawa or, you know, the Indian consulate in Toronto, should India resort to some drastic measures of the kind that you just listed?
I think we'll have to do that. There is no other option. I mean, this is not something the first time it is happening. You can give them a benefit of doubt if it was happening just once. But if it is a repeated kind of a thing, which is against a country, which you call your friend, and you remember that during the pandemic, Trudeau approached Prime Minister Modi for asking for vaccines, which we immediately provided, 500,000 of them. So we stand up whenever there is a need for the people. We consider those people as Indians, but then you are allowing separatists and extremists and terrorists to continue to do this. Then, of course, there is nothing else but complicity of the government or politicians in that regard. So we have to be mindful of that. So we cannot keep that kind of a relationship going and ignorant and unmindful of what is happening on the ground. So I think that we'll have to take that, and I hope this kind of a scenario that you painted does not happen. And the Canadian government and the RCMP and all take adequate action to protect the Indian diplomats as well as the consulates and embassies.